Yeah, Tuesday, so still got some fighting days left.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah,
So.
and we're in the thick of it, so it's every day is just like grinding it away. We bang out right now we're banging out 500 to 800 calls per week. So
Wow.
we're getting up there in volume. But it's just processes. It's having a team that's built to do that kind of thing, and they know that it's like where we're at now. It's not gonna be like that in the next quarter. This is just like opening procedures.
Yeah.
It's just about what we gotta do.
Gotcha. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Discovering 615. I'm your host, Rob Thacker. I'm here with my friend Derek Jaworski, owner of Happy Hollow Wellness, and you've also got a new gym down in Nashville, Alloy
Personal training.
So you guys need to check that out. So welcome to this episode. Derek, let's just jump right off. I mean, are you from Nashville, native Nashvilleian, or how did you end up here?
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that story.
Yeah, so I'm a third generation Army brat. So both my granddads served in Korea in the Army.
Okay.
My dad was career Army. So born out on the West Coast, went to preschool in Germany, went to elementary in Georgia, upper grade school in Minnesota. Then I joined the Marines.
Oh, well.
Did 6 years out in California, my wife did, while I was gone on deployments. And got to experience a lot of different things there. And then got out, went to Northrop Grumman, did some contracting, went back over to Afghanistan. So spent about, 3 years in Afghanistan. All the while just kind of feeling out where I was going to be career-wise and what, as a young person, what was going to be most drawing to me on where I wanted to spend the most of my time, because I knew it wasn't going to be in the military, being gone from my family. My wife and I, we were getting older, we hadn't had kids, and so it was always in our mind, we were looking around on where that next step was going to take place. So while I was in Afghanistan on one of my last tours, I started looking around at schools. I was pretty into health and wellness at that point. On my last deployment in the Marine Corps, I hit an IED. And so I suffered a TBI, I got knocked out. But luckily I kept all my fingers and toes, which was great.
Sure.
But some of my friends weren't as fortunate. And one of my earliest experiences was helping one of my friends who was a sniper and stepped on something called a toe popper, lost his leg and some fingers. And we actually ended up being a part of a rehab program to get him back to full service.
Wow.
Yep. So that was the antithesis of getting involved in health and wellness. And while I was entering into this contracting role, I was just kind of trying to flesh out exactly where that was going to align. That got me to looking at Belmont, and I applied and I got accepted. And so my wife and I moved here. We sold our condo in California and bought 5 acres and a nice little spread out here, which was great.
Absolutely.
And we beat the rush. So we've been here for a decade now.
Wow.
So went to school and did that whole thing. I thought I was going to be a physical therapist, but really my heart and mind and passion was just connecting with members and individuals that were in need and creating the longest term exposure possible. So being stuck in a physical therapy clinic, typically people only have direct exposure on the acute phase, coming out of surgery or just dealing with that particular injury. Being a personal trainer opened up the scope of practice quite a bit and allowed me to kind of engage long term with people and kind of help them, navigate the waters of health and wellness for a lot longer time frame. And so started training at personal training studios and then ended up opening up Happy Hollow Wellness.
Wow.
And that was the antithesis. That was the first phase.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you again for your service.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Thank you for protecting our freedoms and our rights as always. So the concept, so that really, dealing with your friends, your buddies in the military, kind of opened your eyes to, hey, there's something out there that we can really do. Talk a little bit about more in terms of the Happy Hollow Wellness concept, because this is not your, looking around, this is not your normal physical therapy gym. This looks a little more like something walk into CrossFit, powerlifting. So talk about that too.
Yeah. So while I was attending Belmont, the requirement to get into physical therapy schools on average is about 150 hours of observation in clinic, and what I did is I basically tripled that. So I was all over Vanderbilt campuses, going in and out of different physical therapy studios or clinics, basically up and down the middle of the nation, and getting a good glimpse of like what actually these guys were doing, how they were paying their bills, what the customer experience was like. And what I realized is like globally, most people just really needed to strength train, and that was going to fix a myriad of their issues, whether it be like, you know, impingement or posture or hormone issues. A lot of that stuff was just really, it was just like a lack of strength. And so that started like me down this path of really focusing in on teaching people how to strength train appropriately. Happy Hollow Wellness was created after I finished up a stint opening up some Orange Theories in the area.
Okay.
And that was like a higher class environment, so 20 to 30 people in a session. And while that was very valuable for those members, I still wanted to pare it down and get more hands-on with those members, especially those ones that needed intervention at a little bit higher level. So somebody that's coming out of surgery, or you know, has like a a disposition as far as like relating to other people, being in social environments. So this Happy Hollow Wellness started out to where we could set up a studio where 6 people could be in here at a time.
Okay.
We could deliver a higher level of service and make sure that we can program for them appropriately. And we really wanted to bring this to the place where females and those that didn't feel comfortable stepping into like a big box gym would feel comfortable picking up a barbell and not feeling judged or not feeling like, you know, they were taking up somebody's space. They were allowed to come in here, learn the craft, and progress along appropriately to where, you know, my mom's been training with us for a long time.
Wow.
She's lifted millions of pounds, and we can correlate that data just because we have software that's built out to support that. And so we were able to just deliver this unique scenario where people were allowed to take advantage of those services, and we found our people. And that kind of graduated to where we were able to open up the studio in Nashville now. And Alloy is an emerging franchise. We're within the first 100 studios to open up nationwide.
Oh, wow.
Yep, and we're going to scale that up to 800 locations in the next 5 years.
Okay.
And so the growth phase on that one is pretty quick. And the nice thing about that is it relates so well to our demographic now. It's the same thing. It's 6 people in a session.
Okay.
High touch, more like a Ritz-Carlton kind of
Right.
service. And so again, we just go back to like making sure that we can meet and service those members appropriately, to where there's nothing really else like that in the community, anywhere you really go.
Yeah. So, and that helps make you guys distinct, because one of the questions I was going to ask, what distinguishes you, but you got from other gyms, from the Gold's Gym, from this, obviously the more powerlifting, but also the hyper focus of high touch individual needs of individuals.
Yep. So like our average member that's walking into our Alloy studios, or even here, the member that you were that was leaving when you took off. These are all like professionals. They'd be looking for a personal trainer. Typically, just sometimes when you're dealing with a personal trainer, it's one-on-one. So there's a lot of things that come up when dealing with that schedule. You're marrying that other person's schedule as well. So that can become an issue. If their lifestyle changes, that can become an issue. So having our studio to where we have sessions in the morning, sessions in the afternoon, and we make sure that we're coordinating that you're booking those sessions. But there's some fluidity and some flexibility in there.
Gotcha.
And then you're not just stuck with that one coach's programming. You actually are able to be a part of a group and have more of a cohort that's designing that program to have a well-rounded perspective on your development.
Gotcha. So with your the well-rounded, do you guys focus, because I've seen a lot lately on former CrossFitters out there talking about functional training or functional bodybuilding. There's certain guys out there on Instagram or talking about that. Do you guys incorporate some of that? Is your whole idea of functionality and things of that nature?
Primarily, it's strength training,
Okay.
and we build out the best workout program for the 40 plus community, and that's very focused on mostly it's focused on females, and so really it's about like strength training progressions for them. Yeah, it's functional movement in regard to like we're preparing you to live the longest lasting, most functional life that you can. So you really don't need to like throw 150 pounds on a barbell and be able to do that. You just need to learn the basics of strength training and progressive overload in that capacity.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what are some of the common things you hear from your clients that come in, the new clients, and then what are some of the things that you hear from your other clients who've been with you for a while and improvements or success stories and things like that? What are some of those?
So our gym down in Nashville, we've been in. We had our grand opening last Saturday, and we've been in operation for about a month now. And so when you enter into our gym down there, you start out with a starting point session where we'll do an in-body scan, and it just measures your muscle mass, bone density, and fat mass in your body. And we do those scans every single month to track the results. We also do a modified functional movement screener where we're testing joint angles, different impingements, different things like that. And we do those every month as well to kind of like make sure that everybody's tracking along appropriately. We do accountability sessions with those to make sure, again, that we're reassessing those goals. And that's like really how we're gonna like make sure that we're tracking those results and getting the best value out of that as possible.
Gotcha. And you said earlier, 40 plus, are you working with an older group is what you're trying to do, so geared towards 40 and over, so someone like me would benefit greatly from being with you guys too.
It's like you can go into your Orange Series, your F45s, or burn boot camps or things like that, and it's really easy to get lost in the shuffle, just because you're dealing with 30, 40 people in a session. There might be one or two coaches in there. And so if you have any like type of joint injury or something like that, the majority of our people really are coming in because not only do they need a little bit of accountability, they just need to know what is appropriate for them. They've already scheduled in their time that they are going to allocate this much money, this much time to their health and wellness. They just want to make sure that those are of a certain value, that they're seeing the progress along the way. And while you might participate in a health and wellness program for 3, 6, or longer months, you might not be seeing the best results just because you're one lane off of exactly where you need to be, where you're doing lunges and your hip hurts, and now you're doing step ups with us and everything's moving along swimmingly. There's no more hip impingement, and that's just the thing of having that personal trainer that's there talking with you, creating all the shortcuts, helping you avoid all the pitfalls of wasted time, wasted money, wasted effort. A lot of those things, they just become red flags, and they become points of contention that stop progress altogether. And so what I think of is like, if somebody is on this path, it's really easy to kind of like deviate or have some form degradations that lead to injury that cause a stop in training. And what we've noticed is if somebody leaves a studio, whether that be the program's not working out for them or they're hurt or something like that, the reality is they're not going to join another program for like 3, 6, maybe even longer months, and that's a lot of time. And the biggest hurdle is always like getting people to start, right? But every time I'm like doing these discussions with people, it's not about the starting. It's about how consistent you can be over time. You train, you've trained for so long, and that's really where you start to see the benefits actually starting to play out. Is when you're in your 40s and your 50s and your 60s, and you're just like, oh well, I can pick this up, I can get that. It's no big deal. I can go on a hike with my kids, and I'm not gassed. And the training that you're involved in is appropriate for the capacity that you're trying to drive out of it.
Right. Talk about, you mentioned something in that dialogue there, the discussion there about form. Because I've lifted since I was 18.
Yeah.
I'm 54 now, so I've lifted. But it's amazing to see how important. Talk about how important form in your lift is, because there are people out there I've seen, and it's form, their form is like, you shouldn't be doing that.
Right. Form is interesting. It's one of those things that like, it's a million different ways that you can dissect it, right? So there's some coaches out there that are very particular about the way that they do things. I think of like Starting Strength and Mark Ripito, that kind of thing. And he's very formalized. He wants everybody to lift the same way. What I've noticed is, you know, people are all individuals. We all are shaped differently. We all have different injuries. And so what I like to do is like make sure that you're look, feel, and performing a little bit better than what you previously were. It's not causing any impingement or injury. And then there's no just major discrepancies in that form. And if we can kind of keep it underneath that umbrella, most of the stuff can be left out for interpretation. It is usually, though, when you start seeing things pop up like that hip impingement or the shoulder impingement, then you can start making those small details changes. Right. That you know, you wouldn't know if you hadn't been working with you know, thousands of people. And so that's where I get the benefit of having such a good broad spectrum of people to analyze. Most of my clients don't see that. So if they're you know, their shoulder can only go up this high, if they just cranked it out to like a 45-degree angle, most of the time that stuff just goes all the way because you're opening up that shoulder girdle and whatever, all that body mechanic stuff goes into it. But that's what you're really paying for when you have us as your coaches, is you can continue to progress along even if things aren't going exactly right. Because the reality is and you know this, is like, when are they going exactly right?
Yeah, exactly.
Are they ever, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and so we're there to make sure that like the lane lines are established, that you can continue to progress along towards your goal, no matter what. Whether it's, you know, all our clients are very busy professionals, so whether that's travel, whether it's like lifestyle, so there's been like some event in the family where we have to modify things, or you know, just activities of daily living, like we're just getting older and things change over time. So we're able to help really address each individual's issues in that regard and create a successful plan for them to succeed for the next 20 or 30 years.
Yeah, exactly. Talk about too, because I know like on days where I lift, my mental fog is gone.
Yeah.
Talk about the connection? I mean, what's the connection? I mean, you hear that, but I mean, I'd love for you to share a little bit about that too. It's amazing.
Right. It's like a cathartic experience, right? Yeah. So, I mean, it's definitely therapeutic, and we are all unlicensed therapists in the studio for sure. So we just get to see people in their most vulnerable states, and it's just so interesting to be able to do that kind of thing. I mean, you're very exposed. There's things that my clients tell me that are mandatory for health and wellness. Like, you know, one of my clients may have had a miscarriage or some type of catastrophic medical event that they're not going to tell anybody else about. Right. But they kind of have to tell me that stuff. So it puts us in a unique scenario to where we're inside of somebody's loop, better than probably their best friends. And then we're so far removed because like we're not a part of their daily life. Like we don't know their husband, their spouse on a personal level, but they know that they go to this gym 2 to 3 times a week. So we hold a very unique spot in letting people kind of like off gas and then continue on their way. And so like you build this trust and community within that group. The way it works for Happy Hollow Wellness and Alloy Personal Training is that being tied into that small group, those people all train together as well, and they're able to like break bread and understand where they're coming from as well. And so like the amount of like just communication and like general positivity that group's able to commit to each other really just like makes it to where, you know, it's a progressive in mental nature. Like it's just so like you said, you feel better, your brain fog is gone, the body's all warmed up, and you kind of just been able to like slough off of that negativity that's been weighing you down. I always think of like the Navy SEAL commander who gave the speech, like you start out stacking wins, right? What do you do in the morning? You make your bed, right? And so like if people know, like, well, I got my workout in this week, I got my 2 workouts in this week, I'm gonna do it again next week. You start just building on top of that, and then you see those around you start to do that too, and you're like, well, we're all in this together. We're just marching on down the same road. Maybe the path is just a little bit different, but these guys got my back with my left and my right.
Yeah, that's awesome. Talk a little bit about too, because obviously it's not just lifting weights. They say you cannot outlift a bad diet. Nutrition's crucial. Obviously, we have a nutrition crisis in the United States. Sure. I'll just leave it at that.
Right.
What are some things you help in terms of with your clientele, your customers? What are some things you advise them with and do with them?
Yeah. Nutrition is like the elephant in the room for everybody, right? Everybody knows like the training part, that's pretty mechanical in nature. It's the day in and day out activities that require you to, make hard decisions. Meal prepping, planning ahead, making sure that those meals that you did prep are appropriately allocated for proteins, carbs, and fats, and doing that at like a high level, 70 to 80% accuracy, week over week, month over month. And so like for 99% of the people that I run across, that is an overwhelming task, right? And so we just started the Resolution Reboot at our studio in Alloy Personal Training down in Nashville, and what that is a fat loss challenge. And that sounds, like it's, everybody's done these fat loss challenges, but the reality is like, that's something that people can commit to for 6 weeks, and we can kind of track those results. And maybe that's the starting point that gets somebody into starting their path. And then we can kind of like help unpack that and bridge the gap for long-term health later on. But when we're going through that process, we try to make it as like introductory as possible. We're not trying to like drown people in data. And so I say drown kind of tongue-in-cheek because that's the first thing that we're going to focus on, is water intake. We recommend that, they're getting close to a gallon a day. And for most people, that's quite a bit.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, exactly.
But that's usually, like you talk about the brain fog, that's usually when they're going to see their biggest impact. Like they're mostly just dehydrated, drinking too much coffee, and not getting enough water in. And then we'll start looking at like their nutritional habits. But we're not nutritionists, so we can't give like a prescriptive diet. And honestly, most people don't want to weigh and measure their food anyways, and I think of it like a pyramid, like kind of like the food pyramid. So you want to get that low-hanging fruit that's going to create the biggest yield first. So that's going to come from like removing food categories. Think like low fat, low protein, low carb, those kind of things. The next step up would probably be something like intermittent fasting. And then finally, when like you're chasing down like the last bit of abs and you want to get shredded for the vacation, then maybe we can do like 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks of strict carbs or caloric tracking, and then just go back to your maintenance plan, right? Because again, it goes back to like, what are we really trying to do here? Create long-term lasting results. And that's going to be done through those easier modifications, and then we can drop in the drilled down heavy-duty methodology when it's appropriate.
Yeah. I mean, because I think people get frustrated with the nutrition aspect, because it's like out there, calorie deficit, macros, track this, the next best, and of course we know capitalism at its finest, they sell you everything and anything under the sun.
Absolutely.
So that's good to know.
GLPs are the big thing right now, semaglutides, right?
Exactly.
So we're always competing with that stuff. I'm a huge fan. I've seen it change people's lives, but the reality is I mean, we all know, and it's never going to change. It doesn't really matter what comes out. Like, you have to train. Like, there's nothing that you can take, even if you're, you got these bodybuilders out here that have done steroids forever. Where would they be if they weren't training, right? They would just be fat blobs. So the reality is, it's like, it doesn't really matter if you're, if you're trying to get as big as you can, or if you're trying to get as small as you can. Those interventions aren't going to come from medical disposition. It's going to come from your habits. It's going to come from the fact that like you need to commit to coming into the gym at least twice a week. And if you want the best results you can ask for, you probably need to be coming in 3 times a week. And in reality, at our studios, both here and in Nashville, we really don't recommend anybody come in any more than that, because we try to, so we try to keep their maximum recoverable volume at an appropriate level. And most of the time we see, like, if you're coming in over 3 days a week, what I've noticed is that those folks are working on something else besides fitness. They're trying to keep their head on straight.
Okay,
They're trying to keep, like you said, they're trying to keep that brain fog away.
Yeah.
Maybe they're just pounding it out for an hour is just how they kind of get through the day. And that's a different discussion that we can have. We can talk about, how they're spending time with their family, what they're doing outside of the gym that might be helpful, like walking, different things like that. Because a lot of people, again, I go back to like a lot of people just don't realize that like maybe the effort that they're putting in could be better spent elsewhere.
Well, talk a little bit about that too. Let's go down that rabbit trail a little bit, because cardio, obviously the heart is a muscle. Where does cardio fit into the program? Do you, how does that work? 'Cause everybody says, you're seeing, again, people out there, you don't really need to do cardio.
Right.
It's like, really?
Right.
I mean, what is that? How would that look if you were putting a plan together for someone who, hey, I want to lean up? What would that kind of look like? Go through that a little bit.
Yeah. So all of our sessions are finished out with a metabolic finisher, and it's very short. Typically, it's some type of interval training where it's 10, 20, 30, 40 seconds on, and then a match of a break after.
Okay.
And then we'll do that, for 2 to 3, maybe 4 sets, depending on what the exercise is for that day. And that's really so we can see what that max heart rate is, get into that like high intensity zone, and then allow the heart rate to recover. So that's HRV training, where you can kind of quantify how quickly those heart rates are dropping. And this is kind of like the geeky, gym stuff that we can focus on for our members. They just know that like they're receiving the best heart health training possible. We all know, been to the Y or some big box gyms and seen people kind of just putting away on the Stairmaster or the elliptical or the treadmill. And the reality is just like, there's no way that you can put in enough work to burn off the calories that you're ingesting if you have a bad diet. It's just the math doesn't work out. And you're at a steady state cardio level, so that heart rate maybe spikes up a little bit, and then it's just steady state across the board. So you're never entering into those higher heart rate elevations, and that's where you're going to really want to see the exposure at a limited level, and then monitor the recovery. So there's just, again, it goes back to like there's a right way to do things, there's a good educated, indoctrinated way to do things, and there's a lot of just wasted time.
So in that cardio aspect, and you guys, it sounds to me, if I heard you correctly, you're the hits, which is, high intensity, 20, 40 seconds.
And it's different for everybody. So for our demographic, who we deal with, it's a mature crowd. So that high intensity work might be 40 seconds of air squats. And you know what I mean? And for some of those folks, I mean, we have folks in our stuff in our gym with huge limitations. So those might be like TRX air squats, so they're supported. And then we can kind of just, that's the beauty of having that small group, is we're able to unpack it and break it down to that individual to where they're getting exactly what they need, whether it be, a heavily modified or a highly intensified version, to get them into that target heart rate range, and then watch them back down off of that.
Gotcha. Talk a bit about too, we talked about nutrition, talked about training. Obviously, you guys, again, because you guys are doing more powerlifting, so you're proposing for your people to do, your clients do more of a composition or multiple lift, like bench press, which works chest and shoulders more so than the individual
compound lifts.
Compound lifts.
Yep. So every workout that we do, Happy Hollow Wellness, Alloy Personal Training, it's a full body exercise. It's always so funny to me when, and this is a good story that I like to tell everybody. Mike Tyson. Do you remember when he broke his back?
Yeah, I think so.
He said that famous phrase, "It's spinal."
Yeah.
Right? So he broke his back doing crunches in fight prep. Right, he fractures his lower vertebrae, right?
Oh wow.
Yeah. Well, it's a lot. Your back is a stabilizer, right? It's not really designed to be put in that like repetitive hinging thing position. So it's always so funny to me when my clients, when our members talk to us, and they're like, "We never do crunches," but I'm telling you, like, I feel shredded. Like my abs are popping through. I can see the results. I just am so confused. It's like, well, that's good training. We use, Palloff presses and bands and counter rotation drills and deadlifts and those compound lifts that require you to have good stabilization through your core. Contractile, we teach them how to breathe appropriately, using a diaphragm, when to breathe throughout the lift. And they're just like I said earlier, they're taught all the shortcuts, none of the bad habits, and then they just get the results that much faster in a safer manner. So it's ideal.
So how long then do your training sessions for your people, like if they come in, let's say today, is it deadlift, bench, squat, one section?
It's more like a push-pull, hip hinge, unilateral movement. Because the reality is like most people don't really need to mess around with a barbell, and depending on the population, it's probably inappropriate. Like if they're doing barbell overhead presses, and your studio only has a 45-pound barbell, that's a big lift for a lot of people. Yeah. And so we do a lot of kettlebells, we do a lot of dumbbells, and different things like that to progress them into hopefully one day that they can pick up a barbell. But there's a lot of like warming up that gets to that. And you're a heavy lifter. The reality is like, how long does it take you to warm up for a 300-pound bench press?
It takes a while. Time. Sets. It takes about 3 or 4 sets to get into it.
And now
if I'm warming up enough.
Exactly. And now you're talking about like time frame. So our workouts typically take about 45 minutes. And that's from like walking in the door to like, all right, I'll see you later. When's your next one? We just don't think it's necessary for those folks to focus on that if that's not really their goal. Now, if I have like a state record holder and we're focused on their powerlifting journey, then we'll do that. But the reality is they're going to be in the gym for 2 to 3 hours, and that's a totally separate conversation than integrating, the 40 or the 40-year-old or the recently empty nester that's just trying to get back into living life and has noticed some like instabilities and some strength deficits that she's looking to shore up.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
She's not going to be separate on the platform.
No, she's not. She's
right.
not.
Right.
Not. So you've talked already about the community, how the community responds. But I want to come back to how has the community received you guys here at Hollow and Alloy down in Nashville. I know you and I met originally through the B3. Shout out to business.
Shout out to those guys.
Those guys, business bonding and beer, or
that's
business
right.
beer bonding. How are you guys doing? B3.
It's been so Happy Hollow Wellness. We've been around for closing in on a decade now, and then Alloy Personal Training. Like I said, we just had our grand opening February 1st. The community has been great, and honestly, like we have our ad spend on social media, but it pales in comparison to like what we're able to generate from our organic marketing, and that's really connecting with our neighbors. The businesses around Capitol View have helped us out so much. They helped donate stuff so we could raffle it off to our guests that came to that grand opening. We're able to do some amazing cross promotions with those some of those med spa clinics that have members that are, using semaglutides. We're able to come in there, provide the education on strength training, and get them directed in the right area. So that aspect has been super, super nice. The other thing that we're able to do, and we've always been able to do, both at Happy Hollow Wellness and now in Alloy down in Nashville, is connect with charities. And so we've always had a good presence with various different charities in the Hendersonville-Sumner County area, and now being able to be a part of Davidson County and Nashville, it's a whole nother level. And so we've actually engaged with some new members, starting on some new foundations, some youth suicide awareness programs, some stuff that harkens back to some programs that I did as a young child. But being a servant leader in the community is also always something that my family has always looked to do, and being a part of those foundations at any level has always been super fulfilling, and I think it serves as a good example to not only our members but our families as well.
Gotcha. So, and you've talked about your future, where you're going with this, especially with the Alloy, which is awesome. Yeah. What would you advise someone who's trying to get into this realm as a business? What advice would you give, sage wisdom that you would give to someone who would want to start their own business, maybe in the powerlifting style of things?
I mean, do your research, be smart. Talk to those around you that have been in that space. The thing is, I think nowadays is there's not a lot of stuff that hasn't been done, and we can always learn from those that have been there before us. So I read a lot. I really enjoy biographies and looking at history, and surrounding myself with a peer group that is of a status that I hope to attain, right? And so through social media and coaching opportunities, I think that those outlets are there for just about everybody in any industry. If powerlifting or if fitness was the path that you wanted to create, or that you wanted to follow down, I think that you would just have to articulate that appropriately to a strong business-minded person that you trust, and see who they can line you up with to help get you the traction that you need, because like what you're interested in business is not what gets you to the top level.
Right.
It's the accounting, the social media, the stuff that you might not necessarily be so interested in, that they can kind of help show you how it can be impactful, so that you have a successful business and you can do it long term.
Yeah, we don't do this honestly by ourselves.
Absolutely not.
We need it takes a group, a community, a strong community to help us and put each other on our shoulders and help us encourage each other.
Exactly. Like I talk with my clients, or my members, talking to them and showing them the shortcuts of what can be like the best bang for your buck. I'm doing the same thing. I'm asking the same thing for my friends that have been there beforehand. And they're like, don't do this. Go down this path. This will be far better for not only you and your mental health, but your business and your client's experience. And that stuff saves me a ton of time and money. And so take the ego out, realize what you really want. You want the independent lifestyle, which is all entrepreneurs really want. Trying to buy back some of that freedom and create a product that they really think is valuable to the world. And so if you can kind of just back the ego off, absorb that information coming from those around you, you're going to be leagues above others, and you're going to progress along quickly.
Man, that's great. Great words of wisdom there. Any final things you'd like to share with the group? I mean, like I said, our studio in Nashville just opened up. We had our grand opening February 1st. I think we have 5 founding member rates left. Okay. So if anybody's interested, hit us up on social media to take advantage of those. We're right off of Charlotte, downtown Nashville. We have free parking, which in Nashville is insane. It's unheard of.
Yeah, it's unheard of. So it's super nice. You just take Charlotte, take a left. We're in the Publix parking lot right there. You just walk right on through. I mean, it's very ideal for a lot of folks. That place is going to fill up pretty fast. So if you want to be a part of that journey, get to us quick. We're going to cap that studio out at 130 people. Okay. That's really our business focus is based off of Dunbar's number, and that shows that the amount of relationships that one person's able to maintain at one point in time is about 150 conversations, and so we want to keep that number under there so we can have that higher level of touch. Once we hit that number, we'll start looking at some other spaces in the area. So stay tuned for what's to come next. But hopefully we'll have some good stuff coming.
Is there a website or anything people can go to?
alloypersonaltraining.com/capitalview. Okay. Yep. And they can Google it. They can find us on social media, Instagram, Facebook, all that kind of stuff.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, Derek, thank you, brother. Thank you for your service. Absolutely. Thank you for your time. Folks, thanks for listening. Check us out at Discovering 615. Have a great day. Talk to you all soon.